We'll call this March meeting of the Lenoir County Board of Education to order. We'll recognize Ms. Lynch for the invocation.
Let us pray. May the words spoken in this room tonight be beneficial to the students, parents, staff, and administrators in our school system. And may we be led by the guiding principle to always base our decisions on the best interest of our young people. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item is the approval of the agenda for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your packet, you have the agenda. We're submitting that to you for approval.
Motion to approve board agenda as presented.
Motion by Mr. Hill. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Nobles. Any further discussion about tonight's agenda? All right, all in favor, raise your right hand. The agenda is approved. Next item is the board chair comments. I just want to welcome everyone tonight. We got a pretty big crowd tonight. That's always nice to see. I'm not sure why everyone's here, but we're glad to have you nonetheless. We do have kind of a long agenda this evening, so we're going to move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's my great pleasure tonight to recognize some of our students for their outstanding achievements. Tonight, we recognize Jada Sutton and Jeremiah Fields, seniors at Kinston High School. They have completed the Business Administration Essential Certificate through Career and College Promise, a cooperative program offered through Lenoir County Public Schools and Lenoir Community College. Both students have been invited to participate in LCC's graduation on May 13th as a result of completing this certificate. The certificate puts these students within easy reach of a 2-year college degree. If they choose to go to a community college after graduation, and many of these classes transfer to a 4-year university and would give them a head start in a business or related major. So very proud of them. Kinston High School student Jasmine Jackson is the state winner in the annual Poetry Out Loud competition and will represent North Carolina in the national competition in May in Washington, D.C. Jasmine competed against 31 other students at the state level, where students recited 3 poems and were judged on articulation, dramatic presentation, and accuracy, among other criteria. Jasmine, who is coached by KHS drama teacher Clay Raines, is the first state Poetry Out Loud winner from Kinston High School. So congratulations to Jasmine. 3 Lenoir County Public Schools students won the right to compete in the 2016 North Carolina Science and Engineering Fair in April by taking honors in the Regional Science Fair held in Wilmington last month. Jenna Steele, a 5th grader at Banks Elementary School, was one of the top 8 students in the regionals with her project Growing Plants in Garbage. Brady Martin, a 7th grader at Woodington Middle School, finished first in the Junior Technology Division with his project about solar cars. Natalie Dale, a Woodington 6th grader whose project about corrosion won 3rd prize in the Junior Chemistry Division, also qualified for the state competition as well. Holly Holder, a senior at North Lenoir High School, has been awarded a Park Scholarship to attend North Carolina State University. The 4-year scholarship is valued at, now let me say this clearly, $100,000 over 4 years. For in-state students, tuition and fees, room and board, books and supplies, travel and personal expenses. Park Scholars also participate in a number of enrichment activities and leadership development seminars. About 2,000 students applied for the scholarship this year. About 35 scholarships were awarded. Holly has also been awarded the East Carolina Scholars Program Scholarship at East Carolina, which is a full ride as well, and the National Coca-Cola Scholars Program, and was just accepted to Duke University last week. So congratulations to Holly as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That is a round of applause.
Next item is public comments. We do have one person signed up, Mr. James Mumford, signed up to speak. Just while he's coming up, we'll just go through the rules again. It is limited to 3 minutes. You have to sign up in advance, and so Ms. Waller will let you know the time if you start to run close to 3 minutes.
Absolutely.
All right,
I won't
Mr.
even
Mumford.
take 3
That's
minutes.
fine. The floor is yours.
I just wanted to say this, that on behalf of the Kinston Lenoir County NAACP, that we wanted to thank you, Lenoir County Superintendent Brent Williams, high school principals, faculty and staff, students who assisted in the planning and implementing of the high school voter registration drive that we had. Also, a special thank you to public, Information Director Patrick Holmes for printing out voter registration forms, organizing and getting them to the school, collecting and turning them in to the election board. Again, we say thank you. You all are instrumental in providing a systematic way of registering the high school students by providing voter registration forms to the students to be completed during their homeroom session. This was certainly a strategy that yielded a great number of students to be reached without any disruption to the instructional day. Due to your efforts, we were able to document, according to the numbers ran at the Lenoir County Board of Elections, a total of 195 plus brand new high school student voter registrants. Amen, that deserves a clap. Thank you again for your efforts, and now we would like to continue the partnership with the Lenoir County Schools, the Kinston Lenoir County NAACP, and the citizens of Lenoir County to continue to remind these new high school voter registrants to please get out and vote. We also want to make sure we get the message out to the high schoolers that missed our cutoff date for whatever reason, that there is still the same day voter registration in November. So we just want to thank y'all for all the help, Brent, for Patrick back there, just for everything that you've done. It was successful. We had a target goal of 200, and we reached way into that number. So thank you so much on behalf of NAACP in Kinston.
Thank you. Great. Thank you, Mr. Mumford. And we hope all those new voters will remember the primaries coming up March the 15th, so please exercise your right to vote. We'll move to the presentation portion of our agenda, the ILCPS update. Ms. Cawley, I believe is here again.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to speak to you in just a minute, but we have a few people from LaGrange here to talk to you that you're going to enjoy getting to hear from. We have Lisa Horner. She's a 3rd grade teacher at LaGrange. She brought some superstar students that she's going to introduce to you in just a second. And then we also have Alicia Davis, who is the digital learning specialist at LaGrange, who are going to speak to you.
All right, let's see if I can remember how Charles told me to set this up.
He's on standby if you need him right there.
And then, well, oh, it's already on. Okay. I have really tried to embrace the technology, and so I am requiring my students to do almost daily things on the iPads, and I've assigned different projects for them to work on, and that's what you're going to see tonight. So I've got Jaden Miller, and come on. And if you want to tell them what your project is.
It's a Stone Fox trailer. We're doing trailers on the Brooklyn River, which is named Stone Fox, to try to make other readers who want to read this book.
Okay. And iMovies has a portion of it which is trailers, and it gives us a storyboard. So with the students were required to first of all create the storyboard, and then they could put the pictures in to go with it. And they were not to give away the ending of the story so that hopefully other readers would read the book. My next student is Bailey Parrish, and I do require my students to do book reports, so I thought I would try and come up with a different way to allow them to do the book reports this year. This first one they did it was specified to be a nonfiction on an animal, and their work, they did have a rubric, and they had to look at the rubric and come up with the Shadow Puppet, and so this is on Shadow Puppet, which is a different program that we have. And this is by Bailey. And my last student is Khalees Brown, and she did a PowerPoint, and I will let her tell you a little bit.
This is a Keynote Country project student was assigned a different project and now that's me. And we did this because we wanted to learn about different cultures.
So every student had a different country that they had to research on. At least I tried to get all the continents covered except North America. I figured that was so close. So this is her project, and I won't have her read it like she did when she presented in class, but we'll let you see. And she made this whole thing. And notice the, you know, giving credit where credit's due. And then they were required to embed videos, so. So that's an example of one dance. And that's it.
As you can see at LaGrange Elementary, we are definitely embedding our digital learning into our classrooms. And I'm super excited to announce that April 26th, we're going to have a Student Spring Digital Learning Showcase. What that is, we're going to have students from each class running little workshops for parents, teaching them how to use the apps that they've already used in their classroom. We would like to invite anybody from this class or this room to join us that evening from 5:30 to 7. And again, you'll be learning from the students themselves. So we're very excited to have that, and clearly they're mastering those programs. Thank you.
And I'd just like to say, Mr. Chairman, what a pleasure it is for me as superintendent to see this project from its initial stage to now. And the big question was, how will this, I spoke to a community group today, and they wanted to know, how will these devices be used? Will it really relate to instruction? I said, not only will it relate to instruction, but it will support and drive instruction. And you see strong evidence of this. I'm proud of you young people and all that you're accomplishing. Great job.
That's what everybody came for. I don't blame them.
Thank you very much.
Thank y'all for coming. Clean that up.
Children will bring people out.
improvise. Let me try one more thing. Hold on.
It was in the packet.
All right, that's okay. So, here they are. Anyway, that was amazing what they did. I think as a teacher myself and that teacher in my heart, yes, they could have done a book report. Sure, they could have done that. But how much more engaging was that project that they did? And I mean, if you read it, did you look at the vocabulary that they used and the research they did? It was phenomenal. And quite frankly, most children wouldn't put that much effort into something that they didn't know was going to be a product. So, what I wanted to talk to you briefly about is just how we are trying to ignite and inspire our teachers and students, and some of the things that have happened and very recently since we met last time. First of all, we had our Rochelle deployment. Yay! That was on February 9th. It was a great showing. We had support from Apple, tons of Apple people. You see all the red shirts right here. That was all Apple people. Central office staff was there, and members of the community were there. They started it out with an assembly, cheerleaders, basketball players, the whole 9 yards. People from Apple spoke. And then we transitioned into actually going into the classrooms and setting up the iPads, much like we did with all the other schools. The children were very excited. They've already had their first day of Apple PD that they were provided by Apple. The second day got iced out, but she's making that up with them. So they have already started implementing these in their classrooms. So they're very excited about the Rochelle deployment. Something else that we've done is the professional learning communities. We call them PLCs. The purpose of these was to allow teachers from across the district to meet with their grade level to discuss and share with each other in regards to digital learning. So the structure was that all kindergarten teachers in the district came to Teachers Memorials where we met, and we started the meeting by having some model teachers that were really doing some great things with digital learning in their classrooms, present what they were doing, and then we broke into small groups where they were able to discuss their successes and their challenges, and then come up with solutions to their challenges that they've had in their classrooms. And then we came back together as a group to just discuss what they were going to go back into their classrooms and put into place based on what they had learned or been reminded of. This was a huge, huge success. We have done PLCs for grades kindergarten through 7th grade up to this point in high school EOC. So we still have 8th grade and high school to finish out, but we gave a survey as part of these PLCs, and of all the elementary, we had 100% said that they found that it was beneficial and were asking to do it again. It was a very nice opportunity for teachers to be able to network and just hear what other people are doing and getting ideas. And then of our high school and middle school, we had over 97% say they found it beneficial and wanted to do it again. So it was overwhelming to have that much positivity. Another opportunity that we've had in our district to ignite this spark with ILCPS is the Apple Professional Development that we've had. They have tweaked what they offer, and so we have jumped right on that. They're going to, they still offer the traditional courses, but they also offer a co-planning and co-teaching model for us, where a trainer comes and she works with a teacher. We have other people watching and learning, and she plans with that teacher, and then the next day actually goes into the classroom and co-teaches with that teacher. We have had the opportunity to do this at Continue Savannah, Northwest Elementary, LaGrange Elementary, Woodington Middle School, and today we did it at Frank Middle School. So the teachers, and I'm going to show you some products that they made, so excited, and it is spreading like wildfire. Something that we made at Woodington 2 weeks ago, I saw a teacher use it at Frank today. So that's good. That means that teachers are sharing and collaborating, which is what we want for them to be able to do. So I wanted to show you just a few of the products because it's just amazing to see what potential these iPads can open up for students. This is a 2nd grade classroom, and they were learning about landforms, and they used the Maps app to find landforms and see 3-dimensionally what they looked like. So, you know, in the old school days, we would have a textbook and they would look at a picture of a mountain, but now they can actually see a real mountain. The teacher had them go to a well-known mountain, and they were able to look at it, and with the capabilities of the Maps app now, you can even tilt it and make it look 3-dimensional. So they were able to do that, and then it was a lot of self-learning because they then could see what the characteristics of those landforms were, whether it was a peninsula or a mountain, and be able to put it into a Pages document, which is what they did, into a chart. First grade did a keynote presentation where they were working on ending sounds of ang, ing, ong, and so they were making words like king and bang or whatever. So the teacher had set up a shared photo album. They were able to pull those photos in and create a keynote. The kids, first grade, created a keynote. The Apple Professional Development Executive went through, she taught one slide with them, and then they were able to do all the other slides by themselves. It was amazing to watch those first graders. And they inserted video, inserted text, inserted pictures. I mean, they did it all in a slide, and then they continued on. The picture to the right is a 5th grade classroom where they were making an interactive keynote, where interactive means basically you can make a button, you hit a button, and it takes you to a different slide. So their interactive keynote was about adding and subtracting fractions. What do you do when the denominators are alike? You hit this button, it takes you to the steps. What do you do when they're different? You hit this button, it takes you to those steps. The teacher and the students created the slides, and then they were able to use it for a study guide later. This was one of my favorites, the one on the left. It was a science classroom, 6th grade. They were working on elements, and I'm sorry it's hard to see, but they made a Facebook page of their element. So this particular Facebook page, the element was calcium, and they had to put like a group and that it was from, when it was discovered, personal information about it. They had to make kind of some little puns based on what that element did. So she set up an example for the students. This was actually her example, and then the students made their own, and it was phenomenal. I mean, they were so into it, and they really did learn about their element that they were assigned. What she plans to do with that, because she was doing this with all of her core science classes, is she's going to make a huge interactive keynote where the first slide is the periodic table. If you click on calcium, it'll take you to that page. If you click on neon, it'll take you to the neon page. So children can then use that as a study guide and have their own information on every element. The picture to the right is a band class that the students were learning proper breathing techniques. So she introduced it by showing a YouTube video where they could practice proper breathing techniques, but then she had them actually videotape themselves or record themselves breathing properly, and then while they played their instrument. So, you know, things that people who play instruments might draw their shoulders up, they were able to see if they were breathing properly or not. Better than doing it in the mirror, because in the mirror you're looking at yourself, you're not really looking at how you're breathing, and this, they could actually see what they were doing. This was my last little slide. That was, this teacher cried that day from happiness. She had the students working in GarageBand. They were just recording themselves reading a story, and if you see on the left, the bars can tell you if the child was getting faster, which means more fluent in their reading each time they recorded. So the bars should be getting a little bit shorter each time they do it. She basically had a student in her class that was a non-reader. He didn't feel comfortable reading, and he read that day because he was so into this and wanted so desperately to be able to do this that he practiced and he got it, and he was recorded, you know, and he was able to show it to her, and he wanted her to show his mom, and I'm sorry. She cried. She said, "I told you you could do it. I told you you could read." It just was a testament to, if she just had him over there reading, nobody would have heard it. He wouldn't have had an audience, and it wouldn't have mattered. But he had an audience by having an iPad, and it mattered, and he tried. So those are just, we have had an exciting, busy, crazy last few months, but so many good things have come out of it that I could talk about tons of things, but I know you have other things to talk about. But I do appreciate you letting me share. Does anybody have any questions?
My question was, have you tested the kids on what they learn on the computer, on paper, and does that transfer?
As far as how well they do on one versus the other when they're taking a test?
Yeah, like, well, what I'm just interested in, because we're going to have to take all these tests, and I'm just wondering, is this learning transferable to the stuff you see on the tests?
Oh, yeah. And really, kids have been testing on computers for a while now. Even as a 5th grade teacher, the science EOG was given on a computer the last several years that I gave it. The The children do practice with SchoolNet, which used to be Classcape, so they've been practicing testing on computers for a while now. And then with our learning management systems like Canvas and eBackpack, they can test within that.
No, what I was more concerned with is when they learn on the computer, does that transfer so that they can read a question on a paper and check the right answer?
Yeah, I believe so, yes, because really what we're doing here is we're not changing the content. Landforms is still landforms. We're just teaching it where they can have almost like that realia. They can see it now. Instead of it's just a picture in a book, or I'm just going to read this passage, it's now I'm going to take something I read and I'm going to make something out of it. I'm going to really internalize it. So like I think about the presentations we had, you know, where she talked about that Japan. I mean, she learned a lot more than she would have had she just read a little book on Japan and never done anything with it. To me, that's where the iPads are really coming. It's doing something with what you've learned so that you can keep that knowledge.
So it's really enhancing their learning from the same things that they've already done.
Right. We're not teaching a different curriculum. We're just making it more engaging and stick, you know.
No, but my real concern, and I love the computers, but is that going to increase our test scores? Now that we're saying that kids are picking up a lot of other stuff and they're learning it fast, but is it staying? You know, is it transferable to the test that we know we're going to have to take? Should we see improvements based on what you're saying? It sounds like we should be, but you know,
well,
I'm just wondering, are you testing?
Well, there's no substitute for good, strong, effective teaching aligned to the standards. No substitute for that. But these devices are and will help with student engagement and are another vehicle for teaching, for good, effective teachers to use these tools for learning to enhance the learning process and to make the learning process more effective and engaging for kids as they access it. But certainly no substitute. It's not any type of substitute for the teacher or for teaching. The kids are not placed on a device instead of the learning directly with the teacher, facilitating the learning process.
And our classrooms are definitely still blended. I mean, you won't go into any classroom that's all iPad. So teachers are still, I mean, we still are using paper and pencil and things like that, but you know, it's being able to take the iPad and then incorporate deeper learning.
As we move forward with the other, because we have a lot of work to do with academics and instruction, as I've said before, a lot of deep, sustained, ongoing work to do in that area. And as we move forward with that, in aligning our instruction and in creating curriculum documents, pacing documents, scope and sequence documents for our teachers, and instructional support for them, professional development aligned to that. As we move forward with all of our curriculum and instruction development efforts as a school system, this is an important part of that, enhancing the teacher's ability to reach her students or his students and engage them in the learning process. So it's an important part of it. It certainly will enhance what we're doing. It won't replace what we're doing. It certainly won't replace a great, effective teacher. It'll only make a great and effective teacher greater and more effective.
Yeah, I just want to reemphasize, I'm not having anything against using computers or anything like that, but you know, the bottom line is, are we going to enhance our test scores at the end of all this, you know, compared to kids that don't have the computer? Are we going to be any better? And I'd like to say that we are, because you know, you see all the stuff that they're doing with the computer and the advanced stuff. I looked at that little the screen, and the little girl talked about Japan and some of the things up there. You know, I wasn't even thinking about that in the 3rd grade. So, you know, I'm just wondering, is it transferable? Will we see something stronger from our test scores, and when they test, than what we have seen before.
It absolutely is transferable, but the answer is no, we won't improve and move forward if we don't do the other things with the other hard work with curriculum alignment, with developing guides and support structures for our teachers and all the things that we're working on and moving forward. If we don't do those things and move forward effectively, then this certainly could not carry an instructional load on its own. This can enhance what we're doing to move the school district forward instructionally and academically, and it will be an important piece of support for that. So we certainly think, to the degree that they engage students and support teachers in the teaching and learning process, absolutely is the answer to your answer.
I would think too, short of the testing, that the feedback that you get from the teachers about student engagement, staying on task, and move into a higher level of thinking and independence. Sooner or later, those things will have a net effect on test scores. But I would say your initial evaluation is going to come from the teachers themselves.
And it takes time. I mean, you know, not every teacher's in the same place, not every kid's in the same place. That's why we're working and we're doing all this professional development, and you know, we have our digital learning specialists in the schools because it takes time, but we're building a lot of capacity, and we've got some teachers doing some amazing things. I mean, you saw that tonight.
I agree completely with what Mr. Anderson said. I mean, engagement is the key. It's often been said, one cannot teach them if he can't reach them. And reaching a student, engaging a student in the process of learning and teaching and learning is completely, some might say it's the whole ballgame. If you get the student, if you ignite that spark for learning, that fire for learning, then he or she is involved in the learning process and then supported by these tools, I think we can go forward. And he's also right, the higher order thinking skills. I mean, you saw that on display tonight. Very proud of what our young children are doing.
I can't remember the exact quote, but it's something like, once you instill the love of learning, the learning itself is soon to follow.
Absolutely.
So, and I think what we saw here tonight was a love of learning.
Absolutely.
And I think, just like you said, Mr. Anderson, that if the teachers are enjoying teaching again, because some really have lost the joy for teaching with all the stuff that's going on in the legislature. But when they enjoy teaching, I had to put that in there. When they enjoy teaching, then they're going to be more effective teacher. And as a result of that, the children are going to be more effective. And with the device aiding in the learning process, then I'm sure that the schools are going to, you know, right, and they won't see an immediate impact, I don't imagine, but over time I think they're going to rise. If I'd have had something like this in school, I probably would have been a student instead of a B student.
That's crazy.
If I'd have enjoyed learning, I've been an A student instead of a B.
Any other questions for Ms. Cawley tonight? Yeah. We appreciate the good work y'all are doing.
Thank you.
We really do. Thank you. Next item is the instructional services summary by Ms. Dunn.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's fitting you come in right after we just were talking about this.
I know, it's perfect time.
It all fits together.
Yes, it all fits together. This evening, I'd like to share a few updates with you regarding the instructional services work during the months of February and March. In your board packet, you did see our summary, which was very brief this time, concerning our meetings. One important meeting we did have, we had consultant presentations, and these presentations were presented to us by consultants that, it's not a presentation for that. It's in your board packet. I see your frown. We're going to do, I'll have something for you with the last one. Well, these consultants were those that presented quotes for their services regarding creating these documents and blueprints for us. And so that was a really good meeting. The instructional leadership team participated in that meeting along with Mr. Williams, Mrs. Lynch, Mr. Coker, who is our district transformation coach, along with 7 principals that represented each level of our schools, elementary, middle, and high. And the The consultants, they were able to demonstrate for us their products and just, show us what they had to offer and talk about what they could do for us regarding the blueprints. So that was a very productive meeting, and we're hoping that we're going to be close to making a final decision soon. In addition to that, Mr. Coker has been working very closely with our department, and we are addressing the objectives and the strategies in our low performing plan. And what we've done thus far is we have created a tentative action plan for addressing data, which is one of the goals and strategies from our low performing plan. Mr. Coker has worked with us on doing that, and we have something that's tentatively mapped out through the month of May that we'll be working on from now to then. Okay. We have a really big project coming up, and it's our Advanced Ed accreditation. Just 1 second. Let me do the Apple TV. Right here. Which one? Right. Okay. Okay, here we go. All right. Thank you. All right. Oh, wait a minute. Wait. Stop. Okay. All right. Thank you. Lenoir County Public Schools will be participating in an Advanced Ed accreditation review. In 2010, Lenoir County Public Schools participated in the Advanced Ed accreditation review, and it was a very successful process. It was our first time engaging in this. We would do our accreditation through SACS before, but with the Advanced Ed accreditation, the North Carolina Central Association Commission on Accreditation and School Improvement, the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools Council on Accreditation, and the National Study of School Evaluation, they came together under one umbrella and formed Advanced Ed. Advanced Ed District Accreditation, what does that mean for Lenoir County? It's a national protocol for school districts committed to a systematic, systemic, and sustainable continuous improvement effort. By systematic, we mean that there is a system for school improvement in place that is thorough and automatic. It's systemic in that it is comprehensive and it impacts all levels of the school system. And it's sustainable because it is an improvement method that is embedded in the schools and district practices over time. And also what's very important about this effort is that it brings the system together. It embeds the idea of a school system and not a system of schools. And it promotes support throughout and within the school district. There are 3 pillars of accreditation that Lenoir County Public Schools must address in this process. We have to meet high quality standards, we have to engage in continuous improvement, and we have to demonstrate quality assurance. And I'm going to discuss those very briefly with you. This slide that you see here is the Advanced Ed process that guides our district and other districts as well through the continuous improvement cycle. We accomplish continuous improvement through district and our district school improvement plans and our district improvement plans and our school improvement plans. And it's just as you see, it's just a continuous cycle of school improvement. Your vision, your profile, your planning, monitoring, and then acting on your results. Lenoir County earned accreditation in 2010, and we are now a candidate for renewal of our accreditation. And in order to maintain the Advanced Ed accreditation, we must do several things. The first thing that we have to do is that we have to meet the standards, the accreditation standards, the policies and the procedures of advanced ed. We have to host an external review, which occurs every 5 years. The team of this external review is comprised of a national team of educators, some that are from our state and some that are from other states. This team will assess whether or not we are implementing the improvement processes that have been designed by Advanced Ed, and that we are doing what we say we have in place now and how well we are meeting the standards for Advanced Ed. The quality assurance team or the external review team will give us commendations and also recommendations at the end of their visit, and will decide whether or not Lenoir County Public Schools will become accredited, which I know that we will. The process has changed tremendously since 2010, and I want to just review with you very briefly a few ways, major changes that we see. In 2010, the school district did a holistic view of our district, and by that we're meaning that we did a district report about our district and all the schools as a whole. This year, all 17 schools had to complete the very same process that the school district had to complete. We had to go through a series of modules where we answered questions and completed reports. Each of our 17 schools had to complete the very same process that we as a district had to complete. In 2010, there were 7 standards that had to be addressed by our school system. This year, we have 5 that we are addressing. And under each standard, there are specific questions that must be answered. And they do give you a guide, they give you a rubric to kind of gauge how you are to answer the questions. Each school's answers will be different based upon their school's needs, their school's improvement process, but we're all answering the very same questions, district-wide and school level. Also, this year what's different, in 2010, Advanced Ed team members visited 3 schools. This year, they will visit 6. The schools that will be a part of their visits are Southeast Elementary School, Moss Hill Elementary School, Frink Middle School, Kinston High School, and South Lenoir High School. We were given criteria from which to select these schools. The criteria was they wanted to see the lowest performing school, the highest performing school, and a school at each level, elementary, middle, and high. And so these are the schools that were selected. This slide shows the schedule for our external review visit. The team will arrive on Sunday, April 17th, and they will prepare for our visit. On Monday, April 18th, they will conduct interviews all day here at Central Office. Those interviews may include our superintendent, board members, Central Office administrators, principals, stakeholders, and district support staff. They have provided us with a sample schedule that I've shared with Mr. Williams, and that just gives him an idea of what to expect for the district review. And we also have a sample schedule for schools that I will be sharing with those schools that will be visited. The principals that will participate in the interviews are not the same principals whose schools will be visited. So they're trying to get a good sample of the stakeholders in our community. And Mr. Williams, I'm sure, will provide you with information regarding your participation in this interview process. We also have some sample questions that are available to us, and we are encouraged to look at those questions and review them. They may not ask any of them, they may ask some, but at least we have something to gauge and to review. On Tuesday, they will visit all 6 schools. And then on Wednesday, that's when they meet here at central office, follow up with interviews, and prepare an exit report. And this exit report will tell us what we've done well, what we need to work on, and give us good news. We don't, as far as the open board meeting is concerned, some states require open board meetings for their exit reviews, some do not. So this is here in the event. This is what we decide to do as a district. It's not a state mandate how we do this. It is a local decision, and so Mr. Williams will be helping make that decision. That was a very brief overview of this entire process. We've been working on this since September, and everything, all of our reports are due March 18th. And I think we're on track for that. So do you have any questions?
I do.
Okay.
Are we engaging in this purely now because of timing, because our review is due?
Yes, Mr. Anderson.
So we have no options on this. I am very concerned about how much we are putting on the individual schools. Now, we just approved a couple of months ago the district low performing plan. We've yet to come back and review those individual school improvement plans. And now we're engaging in a process to evaluate and assess the process we are using as a low performing district to improve our status.
Yes.
How in the world, if you already identified as low performing and your visitation is in April and you haven't even had your first year in the implementation of any of these plans, just like the question that Garland had asked earlier. I just question the timing on this.
I understand your concern, and we also share that same concern, but it is a 5-year review process. And our last review process was in 2010. We were scheduled to have an earlier visit, but Mrs. Lynch and I were able to work with the Advanced Ed team, and we were given an extension. So it's our 5-year review. It just happened to fall during this time. It's not something that we had a choice in. We were able to get an extension with the date, but the accreditation review happens every 5 years. It's tough timing.
I don't see you inviting the company in when you're in the cleaning process of your house.
I agree. And we are not necessarily inviting them in as much as it is a requirement to continue to have our school district accredited.
I think the status of low performance speaks to your accredited where you are.
Yeah. I understand your concerns, and we all have shared those same concerns about the timing. But it's just the evaluation process every 5 years.
It's going to be very interesting to see what kind of eval you get at the end of this process.
Well,
and I think that what they're really looking for is that we, as in the process of seeking to evaluate and certify us as an accredited district, that we operate effectively as an educational as a group of educational institutions, and that we're moving forward. In this case, the process of what we're told is that they'll assess our processes of assessment, of moving forward, figuring our process of determining where we are and how we want to move forward. So they take that into consideration. Over, what is the number? Over 70% of the school systems in North Carolina have at least one low-performing school. I believe that's the number. Our district transformation coach, Mr. Coker, is with us tonight. I believe, Chuck, that it's 73%, I think. So this is something they're dealing with all over the country and all over our state, certainly, with low-performing plans in the timeline. And yes, the timeline is unfortunate, but what they want to see, I think, and this goes back to many of us who've been in the business a lot of years, it goes back to the Southern Association visits, to SACS visits, and those were much more involved with notebooks that you had to create, much more of what people might say was a dog and pony show. What we're told now is that the data has been submitted all year, and the visit is just to affirm what was submitted by each school all year.
I understand all that, but my point is, if it's an evaluation of the process the system is going through,
right,
in order to improve the performance of our schools.
Sure.
What I'm trying to get across is we haven't even revisited those individual school plans as a board.
Again,
Right.
that is, yeah.
We looked at them, but they're due to come back. They are due to come back.
Absolutely. And Mr. Anderson, we really do, and did at that time share the concern about the timing of this. But it's just how it falls every 5 years, and this is the 5th year. I don't know if there is a process of getting an extension other than outside of that 5-year timeline. I'm not sure. But it just kind of all fell at the same time.
It's not fair to the schools.
Absolutely. It's a lot of extra work they've had to do in addition to their low-performing plans. But I will say this, their low-performing school plans was a very big help in completing this process.
Well,
because
I would grant you that, because that is the process.
yes, they were able to use all of that work that they put into those plans into completing their work for advanced ed. And it is unfortunate that it fell, our review year fell during all the changes that we're going through, fell through that time, but
But I'm gonna push it all back on the General Assembly. They're the ones that.
No, this is not the General Assembly.
No, I mean, as far as the way they designated the low performing schools. I mean, we did.
Yeah, but we still had work to do.
Well, there was work to do, but they didn't help.
But it wasn't Lenore County's decision, it's just our timeline fell that way.
All right, any more questions for Ms. Dunn?
So you don't have any choices, you don't have any options.
Not that I'm aware of, but that doesn't mean that there aren't some.
We did ask about having it next year, but to continue our accreditation, it has to be done before this school year is over. The visit does.
The alternative is to lose your accreditation. So
I still got it.
that pretty much would end that discussion.
Yeah.
I said, I'm surprised you still got it.
Any other questions for Ms. Dunn tonight? All right, thank you,
All right,
ma'am.
thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is the Teachers Memorial Facility information from Mr. Williams.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you remember, the board asked me at the last meeting to come before you tonight and bring a list of factors to consider, positive factors, things gained by potentially not operating Teachers Memorial Professional Development Center and Pre-K Center as a district, and then factors to consider, reasons why it could be doing so could be a challenge or could be a problem for us. And tonight I've done that, and I'll present those slides to you, and then we can talk about it, and we're seeking some direction from the board in how you'd like to move forward and what we'd like to do at this point. First of all, current ways that TMS facility is used by LCPS as a professional development center. We host district level trainings there, regional trainings there, state level trainings there. Last week we had administrators from almost every district in the southeast region, and they were there for the NC STAR training, a new program that we're going to be using next year in all of our schools. So that's pretty much, and the old what was formerly the cafeteria of TMS is a big training center. They have training rooms throughout. What the former media center there is used, the original media center there is used for that as well. And the pre-K center is located in the rear of the facility in the newer part, which was added to Teachers Memorial School just before, not too long before it was closed. So those are the current uses. We have 9 actual classrooms for pre-K at TMS. 8 are actually used for pre-K instruction, 2 for NC pre-K, 3 for exceptional children, 2 for 3 school, 1 classroom for toddlers. And then you see at the bottom in the by the asterisk, 1 class is used for ESL instruction offered by Lenoir Community College. Other classrooms, and this was something that I didn't include last time, but you asked me to go and get more information and meet with I chose to meet with Mrs. Dawson, Ms. Erin Dawson, our pre-K coordinator, and I talked with Teresa Anderson, our professional development coordinator, both of whom are based there at Teachers. We have 6 offices, 1 assessment room, 1 meeting room, and this is just for pre-K. The pre-K coordinator's office, licensure, curriculum specialist office, pre-K secretary, bookkeeper office space, EC staff member offices, 2 space for IEP meetings, speech therapist office, and EC assessment room. Projected savings if the facility were closed. It's a rather large facility. By comparison, J.H. Sampson was 60 in the 60s, 65,000 square feet, I believe, 47,856 square feet for teachers, and again referencing our last facility that was closed. Yearly facilities cost $85,958.55. Yearly cost of maintenance for the facility. As you see, and some have asked why that number is low. That number is low because Teachers is in relatively good and stable condition. A lot of money was spent to fix up Teachers Memorial. It's in very good condition. If you haven't been by there, I invite you to go. It's in very good shape. So the maintenance costs are very low there. $93,387.36, the total projected cost there. And we didn't figure in other things like what it costs to operate, just supplies and everything like that, because those are all, all the money for supplies, that's all allocated per pupil for each school anyway. So if the students, either pre-K students in this case, if they were in another facility, it would cost the same, say, for paper towels and all of that. So we didn't try to split it out and figure out what it would cost to for those items. So we just went with the larger costs here, but we tried to get it as precise as we could. Factors to consider: potential savings over time multiplied out over 3 years, $280,162.08. 5 years, $466,936.80. 10 years, $933,873. Positive elements of potentially not operating it, TMS overall. Savings cost of daily operation. Increased overall efficiency of the school system operations, increasing capacity usage ratio at other schools, because if we didn't have the pre-K program here, it possibly could be used at another, be housed at another school. But I do need to pause there and to point out that the partnership, the Greene and Lenoir County Partnership for Children, actually decides where the pre-K centers are based. And of course, we decide, you all decide about our facilities that we own as a school system, but the Partnership for Children actually decides where the pre-K centers are placed. So that would be their decision, but potentially the pre-K program could be placed at another school. Current maintenance costs, capital needs for repair and replacement can be avoided Many of those things, many of the HVAC systems, boiler systems currently are in good shape because the money's already been spent. New carpet, new paint. It's really an impressive facility for its age, and it's Mrs. Anderson's done a lot since she's been there to add to that and to enhance its appearance and to take good care of it, as has Mrs. Presley, the pre-K coordinator, and now Ms. Dawson, the pre-K coordinator as well. Okay. Challenges of potentially not operating TMS. The current pre-K is significantly larger. The program has grown over the last few years in its current site, and that's a very good thing for the district. It's a good thing for all of us. It's grown since it was at Southeast Elementary. It wouldn't fit back into the same space that it formerly was housed in. So that's a factor too. Could it fit in that school or another school? Potentially, but it's not the same size as it was when it was formerly there. Additional space currently used, pre-K coordinator, licensure curriculum specialist, pre-K secretary, bookkeeper, IEP meeting room, speech therapist, EC assessment room. Challenges of potentially not operating TMS, cost of moving the playground equipment. Now we have members of Parks and Recreation leadership team here tonight for another agenda item, but they might be able to weigh in on this one. But this potentially is thousands of dollars. I've seen a playground set moved for as little as a full playground set with the fencing and all that moved for as little as $6,000, but it could be the full setup. Those setup fees, installation fees can run $13,000 right on up into the 20s. I've seen them, and those are for the ones we were able to afford. Some might be more than that, but there is a cost involved in that. Space on the school campus for pre-K playground equipment, presumably that space is there at Southeast, but it's not a guarantee. It would have to be looked at and determined. Pre-K program currently uses storage space at TMS, space that the program would need elsewhere, so that would have to be considered as well. The drop-off pickup schedule, currently there's not another school at the TMS site competing for morning drop-off pickup schedule. If there are trainings at TMS, this actually has become an issue over there, and they've worked it out. Ms. Presley and Ms. Anderson worked it out, and now with Ms. Dawson, and it works pretty well over there. If it were integrated into a regular school, we do have pre-K on a regular school site, so they're able to blend it and make it work, but this was a concern. I asked Ms. Dawson to bring forward some concerns that, because she's already hearing concerns from her staff members, and I asked her to bring forward a list of concerns, and this was there as well. Loss of dedicated media center for pre-K at Teachers Memorial. Loss of access to the auditorium. As you know, they have one of the largest auditoriums in our school system at Teachers Memorial, and it's got some age on it, but it's in very good shape considering the age. Loss of consistent daily access to large meeting areas, the auditorium and the former TMS cafeteria, now the large professional development room. For trainings and other PD opportunities, loss of centralized facility for large-scale professional development. Challenges of potentially not operating it continued. These are other things that are at Teachers Memorial other than the pre-K center and other than the Professional Development Center. We have our Lenoir County Public Schools textbook warehouse housing all of our textbooks. Reading recovery simulation setting training room we have there for behind the glass lessons. That was a specially constructed room. One of the walls was cut out, and two-way glass was installed with the speaker system for the reading recovery program that a group of individuals studying the reading recovery behind the glass lessons, they call it. They literally sit behind the glass and watch a student learning in the reading recovery format, and that's part of their instruction. So that was installed a few years ago. Technology Storage Center, finance and human resources, storage center for all of our finance files, other than a few that are housed here. Our historical files are stored there, as are the human resources files. Between 8 and 11 rooms and other facilities would be needed to maintain the current operational levels in these areas, which certainly that could be done. Overall, to summarize, loss of a large multi-million-dollar facility in very good condition. That would be a challenge. Significant resources already have been used to remodel and upgrade Teachers Memorial. Lenoir County Public Schools currently leases additional classroom space from Baptist Children's Homes of North Carolina. I tried to put every concern that has been expressed so far up there. So those are the slides expressing positive factors for potentially not operating this facility and potential concerns. Some of those came from pre-K directly, and others have been brought forward by the Central Services team here. And we'll present those for discussion and for direction, board direction in how you think we should move forward at this point.
Did we figure out from last meeting, I remember asking the question, why the water and sewer is so high, $26,686?
It was actually a correction for some error bills that had come in. We had those notes. There was an error over time, and that was the correction.
So they're saying they undercharged us before, right, and caught up in.
Right.
You know how much that was in correction?
Yes, I have that number for you, and I can send that to you later on tonight or tomorrow. But it didn't make a significant. It didn't make a significant difference.
That's just a lot of money on water and sewer.
It is. It stands out. I agree with you on that.
How?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Professional development, how often do we use that?
Mrs. Anderson is here tonight, our professional development coordinator. She books each one of those, keeps track of it, puts out a calendar of professional development opportunities. I can say a lot. Mrs. Anderson can tell you specifically, though. Ms. Anderson.
From the month of the beginning of February to this point, we have had 972 people trained in the facility just in the month of February to this point. And a lot of our trainings, typically what Mr. Williams was referring to, our training room, room C, holds approximately 180 people, and so we pretty much fill that room up with a large training.
So how many training sessions is that?
How many trainings? This month alone, we have had trainings every single day except 2 days.
So there.
And when I say the training rooms, we have about 6 rooms that are constantly being used. Today we had DPI there, and they had we had a TRC training, which we had about 100 people there. So in the facility, just for today, we had about 350 people trained.
But I'm talking about how often do we have to use like the large room that we were talking about here. You don't have those large meetings like that very often where you would bring that many people in at one time.
An average for a month, we use large trainings, we probably have about 15 days for a month, in a month. And I can give those numbers for you because we keep up with how many people sign in, but that large room is booked just about every single day. And an average is around 75 to 100 people.
What it is it's which comes first, the chicken or the
And
if we didn't
okay,
have
so
it,
you're
we
talking
just wouldn't hold
75
those
to
trainings
100
here.
people that
Some of them are.
that's the average amount of people for the one room.
And then we have breakout. For an example, today we had about 100 people meet in room C, the large room, and then we had to schedule 4 rooms because they would break out into smaller sessions.
Are these our teachers and staff that are being trained?
There are teachers in Lenoir County. It was hosted by DPI. That way, our teachers are allowed to go, and we don't have to travel. But we actually host a lot of DPI trainings in that facility.
And could we do that somewhere else?
We did before we had this facility. We used Kinston High School, the cyber campus at Kinston High School, and we used some other sites. We used a media center at some of our schools. It's not ideal, and you certainly can't hold that number of training for that number of people, but it could be done. I mean, we certainly use the central office here frequently for trainings as well.
Now, the meeting that you had there last week that served the southeastern region, I can't imagine that activity taking place anyplace else because of parking.
Oh, that could not have happened anywhere else. No, no.
You couldn't have held it in place else during that time of day.
Maybe at Kinston, maybe at the Performing Arts Center, but they wouldn't have had an ability to write in the seats.
So I guess what we're really looking at is, I heard the part about versus traveling. So, and the convenience, and I understand and why you're advocating to keep it and the convenience of having the trainings there, but does that hold up enough for us to justify, and we won't have to justify this because it's budget time again, keeping that facility open for that amount of money a year?
What you're going to have to try to, if you can, quantify how much it's going to cost you to change all of this and have meetings in other schools. And I mean, I don't know if you can do that or not, but I mean, you know, you just can't say we're going to save $93,000 because there's going to be some expense involved in relocating whatever, you know, all this that you're doing at this facility.
And I don't think you've been in there long enough to reap the investment that you've already put in there. Now,
Between $300,000 and $400,000 was spent at Teachers Memorial
I
within
think
the
another
last 8
consideration
years.
that you need to, that goes to that calculation is you look at Bynum, you look at Sampson, you look at the old Lewis School. The last thing East Kinston needs is another empty, blighted building. And when you talk about that facility, that's probably one of the most positive things that goes on in that community, period.
I hate to be a negative, but that's a lot of money we're spending. We just, that's why I wanted to see everything that we're dealing with. 93,000.
50,000 just in electric.
I know it.
That's the city.
That's
Yeah, but all of that's not going to go away, though.
No.
There's going to be some cost that's going to be involved in moving all of these. That's what I would, if you were able to do that, be able to offset this with what it's actually going to cost you. And I know that would be difficult to do because you don't know, because if you have meetings at other locations, obviously that's going to be more electricity you're going to be using because you're going to have, if you're talking about utilizing space in other facilities that aren't being used now.
It would be projections.
Yeah.
I mean, we got buildings that we've been asked to look at that are for the underutilization, that we got a whole wing that's not being used. Could that wing be used?
How many students did Teachers Memorial hold when it stopped being an elementary school?
47,000. I think they had, we'll get the exact number, but I'm thinking, I'll get you the exact capacity, but I believe the last student capacity they had in there was about between 300 and 400 students, but it would hold a lot more than that.
And how many does Northeast hold? Or how many attend Northeast now?
Northeast?
Northeast is over 90% capacity.
How many?
Between 400 and 500.
Let me ask this question, Brent. Does any other school district our size say in eastern North Carolina, are they able to maintain a facility like this?
It's mixed. Some do and some don't. Most don't. Some do. Some have departmental training facilities, like an EC training facility.
Smaller but separate.
Right. I don't know of a district that has one. I believe New Hanover does, but districts right around us, I don't know of one that does. Greene County has a technology center that they use for professional development. It's a room about this size that they use, but it's not an entire school, but it is a former, I think, a newspaper building that they've transitioned to a professional development center and technology center. But so it varies. Some do and some don't. Every district has its boardroom that carries, I think, most of the weight of the training sessions for professional development, but some districts have something in addition to that.
Let me ask you, that last slide that you flipped had the facility at Kennedy Home?
Yes, sir.
How much are we paying for that?
Right at $90,000.
A year?
Yes, sir.
A year.
And we were paying how much at teachers?
How much
No,
for
about
utilities? 93. 93.
Was the utility cost?
93, yes.
And how many students do we have at the Learning Academy?
The average, Ms. He's here, she can tell you what the enrollment is right currently, but the average in the 40s, about 48 was that the average last year, Ms. Heath?
So that's an average of what, maybe 5 classrooms? 5, 6 classrooms?
Six regular, well, we actually have 8 because we have art and PE.
And I guarantee you, we got a school building with 50 classrooms somewhere.
But then it is.
So what's the-
I don't agree with trying to move those students that are at that facility to a facility that's operating, because of the fact that those kids are put there for specific reasoning. That's the only thing that because I know we talked about that, about moving to Rochelle, and those kids, if you're taking them out of one school to put them in another school, you need to put them in an environment where they are separate. And because the reason that they're in those alternative schools is because of some kind of disciplinary positioning. And I think they need to be separate. If we just going to move them from one school, you might as well leave them in the one that they're already in. But I do think that when we had the numbers to fill teachers, where did we have facilities? Where did we have group meetings? Where did we have all this other stuff?
Well, as I was saying earlier, we had a Kinston High School. The cyber campus at Kinston High School was a site. The media center is a cyber campus. Campuses at South Lenoir High School and North Lenoir High School, they were new then. The computer labs were brand new. They were used as meeting sites for online activities, and they have small meeting rooms, conference type rooms as well. They were used, the media centers at the school, sometimes even the cafeterias at the school. They were used, largely the training sessions were in the afternoons. In the daytime, it's difficult on the school campuses because you have school going on.
Right.
And that's the big challenge. So it does change the spectrum of what you're able to do. It does change the level of quality of what you're able to offer. You know, and those are difficult things to quantify and put a dollar amount on, but it is a very different experience if you don't have that.
Yeah.
So at Rochelle on the back wing, and what I love to ask the principal, he's not here. Are they using that for anything?
Well,
I guess the L shape, the back side,
yeah,
the side coming across.
It's a whole wing.
It used to be the front wing of the school many years ago.
Right.
Yes, that wing upstairs is used for structured day, and downstairs the wing is used by the Exceptional Children's Department, and they base the school psychologists over there, and they have an EC training room there and some storage and all that. But as far as classroom space, it's currently not used. Rochelle's started using one classroom again for their academy. But otherwise, no, none of those classrooms are used.
We were talking about disruption for training during the day. they have a separate entrance on that building, that you can come in that wing for training, which wouldn't
Got
disrupt.
a whole wing.
And I understand, if I were in your position, I'd want to keep that building because of the convenience and all of that, but when you go to looking at the dollars and cents, the cents part don't really.
I'm gonna say it again, maybe I'm the one that's slow, I'm not understanding here. I understand we're looking at $93,000, but there are gonna be some other costs that are gonna be involved in relocating all of this. And so to me, before I could make what I would consider an educated decision, I'd like to know, if it would be possible, how much it's gonna cost us to move all of these from this location, to relocate all these people and to have all these meetings elsewhere, or whatever it is that we're doing there.
I don't think you can get that cost because you wouldn't know where you're going to put them. You have to know which facilities you're going to use, how many classrooms you're going to use.
And that would be a plan you'd have to come up with, because if you say we're going to close this, you got to do something with them. So you got to have a plan. So you got to be able to determine where you're going to put them and maybe come up with some estimates of what it's going to cost, whether it's moving a playground or increasing utilities.
I might be a little slow, but I don't think it costs no $50,000 in electricity wherever you move them to.
Yeah, and I probably would not put as much weight on that because you're talking about a one-time expense to relocate, and we're talking about a yearly annual expense of about $93,000. And for me, the decision largely comes down to looking at, can we justify keeping this facility open 47,000 square feet for the uses that it's providing, which are good, and I understand the administration wants to keep it, when we've got an elementary school over there with an occupancy in the 40%. We've got a middle school over there with the occupancy, I don't even remember, what's Rochelle's occupancy now?
40, in the 40s.
It's probably in the 40%. We've got wings of empty classrooms all over those facilities. And then we're maintaining another building. You know, the question is just, can we really justify spending this money while we're already doing that at these other schools? I do appreciate the fact that if we move some of this, and I think it hadn't really been said yet, if we move some of this pre-K to Southeast or one of those other schools, we might get to keep Southeast. Because I think the next step after this, they're going to be looking at us and saying, do you need all these schools? So, and I think that's where the argument starts to go in the future.
Yeah, and we're going to have to justify this to, well, one of the people in the room now. County commissioners on why, you know, it's budget time again.
Yeah, this is.
She spoke up on that. That's right.
If I may, Chair, there is a statute, 115C72, that talks about the closure of schools. What it doesn't provide us with is a definition of school. It's not at all clear as to whether or not preschool services would be considered a school. There's no designation. DPI is clear that pre-K does not, something that just has pre-K services does not get a school identification number. We could go to DPI and ask for clarification as to whether the statute would apply. Regardless of whether it applies or not, it's very easy to comply with. A lot of the data, it has basically two steps for complying. One is that there does need to be a report generated and a study done. Much of that has already been done. To the extent there may be one or two other things that might need to be added to the information you already have there, including any issues that this particular board finds as germane to your issue could be added in. So just make sure we hit, dot all our I's and cross our T's on a report, and then provide a public hearing on the matter before the board considers moving forward.
So you're recommending we do that?
I recommend you do that, yeah. I
on
think
this
it might
facility?
make sense on this facility. Either that or holding off on the decision until DPI, asking DPI to provide guidance as to whether they feel that that process is pertinent to this facility.
We've always been under at least the assumption that this was not a school building, that we would not have to comply with that statute.
Right. I mean, you're already 90% there. The public hearing doesn't have to be separate. It can also be at a regular or any meeting of the board, so it could be done at the next board meeting as well. I just wanted to put that out there. A conservative approach would be go ahead and comply with it. I don't know that it would be considered. Again, it's pretty open to interpretation. So, I think that you either want to comply with it or you want to get guidance from DPI saying that absolutely it doesn't fall under that.
Well, I think we'd like the answer to that. So we know if we're dealing with a school building or if we're dealing
Sure.
with another facility.
Sure, we can absolutely get that for you.
Okay. So, any other questions for Mr. Williams or discussion on this issue? Is it the feeling of the board that we should put this on for an action item for the next meeting?
What kind of
To do
motion
what
from
now?
me?
It's pending.
Well, here was my concern is I don't want to burden the administration with doing a lot more work on this issue if we're not going to pursue it. So I feel like the administration at least deserves to have some you know, direction from us on how they're proceeding. I don't want them to spend hours and hours coming up with plans and specifics and moving personnel if this is not something we're going to do. So I feel like we need to cross that bridge first.
So we need the information that Carolyn was talking about.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's just the procedure. Do we have to
Yeah.
do this as a school closing, or can we close it as a facility?
I think we'll be fighting a losing battle if we don't look at doing something with that school, because, you know, you can just about see the writing on the wall from the from the commissioners. They've talked about taking money from us because of those kind of issues. And so I think we need to just be proactive and look at what we need to do. We could almost build for the money that we're paying in utilities and the other stuff, almost build a meeting room or whatever at some other location for the price that we're paying for that.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah, this is 47,000 square feet that we're heating and cooling over there.
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So I certainly don't disagree with you. So we'll put this on the agenda for the next meeting?
How does this tie in with the facilities committee? Is that?
Well, I think it is. I think it ties into the facilities committee. As most of you know, we have a separate facilities committee. We've pretty much been looking exclusively at schools. But this will affect the use of the schools that are going to get the pre-K program if we make this move. So once again, I think that committee would like to know from the board, is this moving forward? If it is, then they can factor that into their decisions. We're meeting again on the 22nd of this month to start back with the facilities committee. And I think they're going to want to know if that changes some of the numbers they're looking at. Any other comments on that?
I'm in the minority, I just don't want to mess with it.
No, you're not.
And even if we put it on the agenda for action, that
You're not
does not
by
mean
yourself.
we will actually take action on it. It's still going to require a motion, a second, and a majority vote. So I will put it on for the next meeting. And largely, I wanted to announce that because I want everybody in the public to know we're putting it on for the next meeting. We're being as transparent as we possibly know how to be about this. We've had our discussion here in front of the public. You can watch it on TV. You can look at the numbers yourself and see what we're talking about. And I think we should put it on the next meeting.
To do what?
One final
Another
question.
presentation, or is it an action?
I think we
item?
should put it on for an action item.
To do, I mean, as a recommendation from the administration, what to do?
Well, I'm putting it on as an action item, and we'll entertain a motion from a board member at that time if someone wants to be made.
In
I still would
terms
like-
of the process, I think the only thing that would impact that is if DPI gives us guidance that for whatever reason this should be considered a school closing, then we would just need to make sure we have a public hearing section to that at the meeting next time
At the
for
next
that
meeting.
purpose.
I understand.
Right. So it doesn't impact that.
Give me the number of pre-K students we're serving.
92.
92 parents out there somewhere need to speak up.
And that's not saying that we're not going to offer them alternatives.
No.
But
No.
they won't be going to that same school. Because we are responsible for you know, furnishing the pre-Ks just like we do at teachers. It just won't be at teachers.
And I'm going to reiterate again, I look at numbers. We're not going to be saving $93,387.36. It's not going to be a clear savings. There are going to be some other costs involved. And yes, there are one time, but there will be some recurring too, because you'll be using facilities that you weren't using. So if nothing else, you're going to have utilities, water and sewer and whatever else. So before I feel like I could make a decision on whether or not it's viable as far as closing it from a financial, being, you know, responsible for the taxpayers' money, I'd like to see what it is going to cost us when if we do make changes. And I know it's projections. I mean, you do a budget, it's projections.
Is there any way to come up with that?
We'll try. We'll do it.
And I know there's a lot going on. I don't mean to put the staff in.
That's fine. We'll make it happen. We'll do it.
I just don't see how you can do that. I really don't.
I don't see how you do that either.
It'll be projection based.
No, it had to be projection.
Yeah, but you're really projecting because you don't know what facility. You're asking them to project where you're going to
what you
send
have to
all
do.
the pre-K kids.
Well, if we're talking about closing the facility and if these, we're going to have to do something with them anyway. You're going to have a plan to do something with them.
You do,
I'd kind of like to see that too.
But what I'm saying is, you're saying about the cost of electricity and water. There ain't gonna be that much flushing and running water going on. It's gonna change. The building's already being used for that. That's
but you're using more. I would like to know.
You're not using as much more as you're using that.
I would like to know where you're gonna put them.
Yeah.
Who goes where?
Yeah, and if you got, like you're talking about having the meetings, you're having 110 people at a meeting, you got parking facilities that's going to accommodate.
Let me just say again, we don't get to choose where to put our pre-K students. That's the Partnership for Children. We don't make that choice. So if they chose not to, I mean, the children, and Ms. Dawson might know more about that process. I don't know of a time when the partnerships refused to put them in another facility, but they do have that option. I do sit on that board, and so does the superintendent from Greene County, and they were very clear the other day when we had our board meeting that it was that they would need to exercise their option to think about other places that we might choose. It wouldn't be just as simple as saying, well, we could put that at Southeast, because they said their program was half the size when they were that it is now when it was at Southeast. So that's a factor to consider as well.
Moving on.
But we don't, you know, they decide where the kids.
Yeah, well, pre-K is not really our program. I mean, we just provide a place for them to operate.
Okay.
I don't know that we have direct control over the pre-K program, other than we provide a place for them to operate.
That's still a federal program.
Yeah,
primarily.
But we actually employ and it's blended funding. Ms. Presley was telling you all when we toured with the commissioners last year. But Ms. Dawson's here. I mean, she's one of our employees, but we do, and we have pre-K at our satellite sites throughout. And I see Ms. Bullard here. LaGrange has a pre-K site as well. But our headquarters is at Teachers Memorial currently.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on the agenda. The next item, lovely, is the dropout data.
And discipline. This is a combined discipline and dropout report.
Is that Ms. Lynch? Or
It is me.
Okay.
Lenoir County Public Schools is responsible for complying with statutory requirements and state board policies regarding the collection of yearly disciplinary and dropout data. In board docs, you were given a wealth of material that explained both discipline and dropout information. But what I have prepared tonight in this PowerPoint is a consolidated look at our data. So we're first going to look at discipline and reportable offenses. There are 16 reportable offenses that determine the school crime rate in each district. This information is made available in the school report card each year. Here you see the numbers for the reportable offenses in Lenoir County. Now, we only have 8 of those 16 reportables to occur. So that's why you only see 8 listed here and not 16. You can see that there are assaults here as reportable offenses, possession of drugs and alcohol, weapons other than firearms, and a sexual offense. And there was a firearm in 13-14, but not last year in 14-15. The trend, however, is positive. You can see that we had fewer offenses in 14-15 than in 13-14, and the largest drop is the category of possession of a controlled substance. This slide shows the highest and lowest 3-year average school crime rates across all the districts in the state. Lenoir County, if you can pinpoint Lenoir County in the eastern half there, or eastern section, Lenoir County is in the middle quartile. Counties in red are the highest quartile of crime rate. Those in blue are the lowest. Those in gray are in the middle, which is where Lenoir County is in the middle. It's interesting to see and note the counties around us and see how we compare in our section, our region. Along with reportable offenses, school systems are required to report all suspensions and expulsions. This table shows the number of short-term suspensions for 13-14 to be 2,676. Year 14-15 shows a decrease of 168 at 2,508. Now, short-term suspension means less than 10 days. It could be a 1-day suspension, it could be 2, 3, anything up to and including 10 days. Now, we are not showing any long-term suspensions or expulsions, and we do have long-term recommendations that principals make, but we always offer an alternative placement in lieu of a suspension. And I'm going to talk more about those alternative placements in just a moment. And we have no expulsions. This slide shows the number of students suspended by gender and race. The data that you see among the females shows, this is short-term suspensions, 31 for Hispanics, 500, this is female now, 522 for black, 81 for white, less than 10 for multiracial. In the male category, there are less than 10 for American Indian and Asian, 111 for Hispanic, 1,250 for black, 411 for white, and 88 for multiracial. Here are the most frequent reasons for short-term suspensions. They are fighting, disruptive behavior, disrespect of staff, insubordination, aggressive behavior, and inappropriate language. You see an increase in the number of fights from 13-14 to 14-15. However, there is a decrease in all the other categories. And this map, again, is the highest and lowest 3-year average of short-term suspensions. And this time, Lenoir County is in the high quartile for short-term suspensions. I mentioned earlier that students who are recommended for long-term suspensions are assigned an alternative placement. In 2013-14, we placed 96 students alternatively, and in 14-15, the number decreased to 80. And these are reflecting discipline issues. Now, the alternative placement assignments range from being at our Learning Academy, which you see we have 63, Structured Day, and Structured Day is housed at Rochelle and is funded by JCPC. We had 2 students alternatively placed there. This was all last year. Homebound, we had 3 students, and 4 received therapeutic mental health services, but the majority are placed at the Learning Academy. Here you have the most frequent reasons for alternative placements. And you see weapons other than firearms, assaults, fighting, drugs and alcohol, communicating threats, gang-related, compliance disrespect, and many of these are combinations and repetitions. They have had a fight. One fight would not send a student to the alternative school, but repeated fightings and combinations with other things may have that student referred. And then we also have parent request for alternative placements. And in most cases, the student is already in line to go to the alternative school, and the parent just goes ahead and requests it in lieu of the assignment being made. That happens frequently. Here you have, again, the map that shows the highest and lowest 3-year average, and we are in the low quartile for long-term suspensions because we do place our students alternatively. Now to the dropout report. Yes?
Comment about the suspensions. Also in this report, isn't it a duplication? It may be the same student 2 or 3 times that people don't really know. When you look at the numbers, the same child might have been suspended 3 times, but it's going to show us a separate offense.
For short-term suspensions, yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct. Now to the high school dropout report. And this is, I want to give you a definition of how you determine what a dropout is. For reporting purposes, a dropout is defined as a student who was enrolled at some time during the previous year, but who was not enrolled on day 20 of the current year. Schools that cannot document a former student's enrollment in a United States school must report that student as a dropout. An exception is when they move out of the country. A single individual may be counted as a dropout more than once if he or she drops out of schools in multiple years. So, and we do have students who do that, become a dropout several times. But no student who drops out, no student is counted as a dropout more than once a year. It would have to be over multiple years. And this chart shows the dropout rates for the past 5 years. Lenoir County is represented by the blue, and the state average is in red. The years 11-12 through 13-14 show a decrease in the dropout rate, and in 13-14 we even went below the state average. However, in 14-15, Lenoir County's dropout rate spiked. And looking at our individual rates, you can probably determine why that spiked this year. Kinston High went from 26 to 39. North Lenoir went from 5 to 61. South Lenoir went from 29 to 35, and the Learning Academy went from 1 to 4. And I can tell you that our principals have met. They already have plans underway to address the dropout rate and to bring these numbers down. These are the reported reasons for high school dropouts, and they have to choose one of these. These are not necessarily things that we make up. There's a drop-down menu and they choose. You can see that attendance and enrollment in a community college are listed as the top reasons. Now, I want to say that when a student enrolls in a community college in the adult high school diploma program, currently they are considered to be a dropout. So even though they're going to the community college and in a program, a high school diploma program, they're still a dropout. However, next year that changes, and a student who does enroll in the high school, now not GED, but in the high school diploma program, they will not be counted as a dropout. So that should really help our dropout rate.
Well, that's 65 kids last year.
Right, that's right.
Okay.
But the catch to that is our high schools are going to have to follow those students.
Track them.
They're going to have to track them, and it's our responsibility. And if the student does not complete that program in the specified amount of time, they have to be in the same cohort, they will go back and pick them up as a dropout. So even though that can help us, it's still going to be work on our high schools to track.
That's half the kids we had drop out this year.
I'm sorry?
I mean, when I look at the numbers, 65 is roughly half of the total we had counted as dropouts this year.
Right. That's right.
What's the advantage of, what's the advantage of going to the enrollment in a community college versus just finishing out the...
Several reasons, and we see this. Sometimes, and the high schools might want to chime in, but sometimes students get so far behind, there's no way they can actually obtain a high school diploma in our high schools before they age out because they don't earn enough credits. They just are so far behind, so that's one reason. Another reason is sometimes kids just cannot deal with the drama of high school, and they just need a clean start and a clean break. We see that as students come in from like we have a lot of students that come in and we place them, we have an administrative placement committee, they come in and they talk to us about what their issues are. They may have been in prison, they may have be in foster care, they may be in therapeutic homes, and for various reasons, sometimes they too are so far behind, it just works out better for them to start at the community college than it does at the high school. However, those would not be our dropouts. There are other students that we have to deal with, but sometimes the high school just isn't a fit. It just gives them another option. And the high schools may add to
All
that.
of our high school principals are here tonight, and our high school counselors, and we have some of our social workers present here tonight to available to answer questions about this as well.
Did anything significant happen at North Lenoir that that can explain that huge number?
Well, I think I don't have as much confidence in the 5 as I do in the 61, unfortunately. I think we went through a process of changing data managers, so I'm not 100% confident in that number. I do know it takes a village to do that kind of job, and I know our social worker and our counselors and administrators at school work daily to work with these students. So I think that the spike is more, not so much the fact that there was 61. I can't say that I'm 100% confident in that 5 just based on the change we had. At the time that report did, we had an interim data manager at that time. After we had lost one that had been at the school for several years, we had one that was there for a year, and then that person left, and so we had our bookkeeper that was actually helping out with Power School at that time. So I would say that the 5, again, I would say that was, I don't have a whole lot of confidence in that number, unfortunately.
And it's unusual that you had so many to go to the community college in 14, 15, and none in 13, 14. So that really does not look right.
Maybe a tracking issue. Yeah.
I do know now, especially this last couple of days, this Friday, we've been documenting it all along, but I think we've got, right now, I think we're looking at 20 for this year that have dropped out, so that number's down. Of course, the year's not over, but we have a Google document that we can all contribute in the things that we're doing administratively, counseling-wise, social worker visits. So we were able to look at that holistically as a group now. Everybody can look at what's going on, so it's not one person keeping their eye on it. We have one document and we can all see what everybody's doing.
Well, we've been very clear with our high school principals, and Mr. Respis is correct, and they all have developed plans and have implemented those plans, and since the data release last week have revised those plans. However, we've communicated to them directly, and I'll say it again here tonight, these numbers are unacceptable, and we cannot tolerate dropouts of this number, and we won't. And we will see improvements in this, and our principals have dedicated themselves, and their guidance team members have, and the social workers have, and we're all working together toward this, but we will do all that we can to address this issue and to make sure. We were very proud of our dropout rate, and even beyond that, more important, our four-year graduation cohort rate and how it was improving with the corresponding drop in the dropout rate over the last 3 to 4 years. But these numbers are very disturbing. The particular data spike is even more disturbing, and all of the principals, I met with them last week, and we are resolved in our determination to make sure that this does not continue.
And it does show in this map that Lenoir County is in the high quartile for dropout rate.
I think too that you're going to be missing something if the high school principals don't work with the middle school principals.
Absolutely. Vertical team.
Because
That's where the
I would be
dropouts begin.
surprised if there's not a correlation between a weak freshman coming into high school and that dropout rate.
But are we giving those kids that are leaving, or is there any kind of exit interview to find out what's going on?
We have several conversations
Oh, yeah.
with them, and especially the community college situation. There are several processes they have to go through. They meet with the administrator, they meet with the counselors, there's a video they have to watch. And I actually stall my parents and the students for at least a week and make them think through that process, all the pros and cons of it. I lay everything out before them. But with the community college, they can obtain that high school diploma with such a lower number of credits than they could at our high school. It's actually enticing to them to go ahead and go for the reasons Ms. Lynch mentioned. But also, a lot of our juniors and seniors now are just ready to move on. I have, at this point, this school year, 11 of those have gone to LCC for a few of the reasons as Ms. Lynch mentioned, but a lot of them just want to go ahead and get finished so that they can move on and pursue military or jobs.
But the question was, is there an exit interview?
Yes.
I mean, a survey. Are they asked to do an exit survey? Where they tell you
Why they're leaving?
Why they're leaving.
I know each one of mine, what their reasons are. Some of them are personal, reasons for their families, but I know, and the counselors know, in those conversations we have, then why each one is leaving.
and that's reflected in those numbers.
My numbers?
No, the numbers that Diane just posted up there.
Yes.
These
Yes,
reasons.
I have, of the incarcerated, those 5 for last year, 4 of those are mine. One of those was in prison. He's out. He's back to school now. He counted as a dropout last year, but he's back. And the other ones are still incarcerated. So those count against the school. But I know each one of mine. Last year, 18 went to community college.
How do special needs fit into those numbers?
The special needs,
Not that much?
not that much.
Not on ours, no, it's not as heavy as of the 61.
I'm looking at my list. Of my 39, I think 3 or 4 are EC.
But I would say I would go back as to those kids, what were their performance levels at the middle school? If they were, when we had the level 3 and walked in there. Yeah.
Well, when I look at this information, and when you look at it as a whole, it looks bad, but when you disaggregate the information, it looks even worse. When you looked at the, Mr. Anderson, when you were looking at the grades and whatever, and I looked and I wanted to know what grades we were losing most of them at. And as I look here, Kinston High lost more in the 10th grade. Let's see.
Well, no,
Norfolk
those
North.
10th graders, make sure you also look at the age of those 10th graders. They might be classified as a 10th grader, but they may actually.
They don't have enough credit.
Right, don't have enough credit. Yeah.
But now this year, I've had 3 to leave community college that were able, when they go in and they test there, they actually test out and receive their high school diploma in union.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was getting to. I see some of them are 18.
Can you go back to the one on the demographics, the racial breakdown?
Yes, that was short-term suspensions.
That 1,250? That ain't right. Somebody's not communicating to somebody. That's well out of proportion. And if you add that 1,250 to that 522, somebody's not relating.
So, Mr. Anderson, is he waiting for an answer?
I'm sorry.
I said, when you're waiting for an answer, I had to come. Let me finish the thought I was trying to get out. So when you go back and you look at the grade level, a lot of them are 18. It goes back to what Mr. Anderson was saying. Before they get there, there's been some disconnect before they even got to high school. You look at 9th grade, 16, it's a couple of 18-year-olds, but going back to what Mr. Respis was referring to, in the saying that didn't think that there were that many, the numbers were not balanced as the year before, 5 and then 61. And I happen to be talking about something I had some experience with because I did this and reported the data. But even before it got to the point of reporting it to DPI, somebody probably should have noticed if the figures weren't correct, the 61, and said, well, hey, this rings a bell. What, maybe we need to go back and look at it. But my question is, looking at the number of kids that are leaving and going to community college, and I've heard this said, are people encouraging them to do that?
We're not encouraging them to do that. I know we meet with them regularly. Counselors do. I meet with them on a regular basis. And so it takes a team effort. So some of them will leave. For instance, I think 3 or 4 of them left to go to community college because they failed to report to the alternative school when they were assigned a long-term suspension. So then they said they're going to go to the whether it's Wayne or LCC in lieu of going to the alternative school because they have to finish their time there before they're allowed to come back to the high school. So that's some cases. In our school, we have a transient group of students that come through Kennedy Home, and then they'll be placed there for a while, and then they'll go somewhere, place to have another placing. And so we have that. It's not all of them. It's not half of them. There are a few of them, and they add up.
When you look, I'm just looking at the numbers, and you look at 26 went to community college, Norfolk North 18, Kinston High, and 21 Southwood North. And then you go over to your attendance, the reason for dropout attendance, 19, Norfolk North 12, Kinston High, and 12 Southwood North. Then you got about 6 unknowns. So I heard that there was a plan. What is the plan to keep these kids from dropping out?
I think I, as an administrator, the counselors, the dancers, the social workers, we're all part of that plan. I think what we're doing now is like I said, we have a Google document that shows each and every intervention that each one of us has, whether he's working with a social worker working with a parent, making home visits, a counselor, and also add to that what their conversations are with those students and with those parents. I can talk with them about those things and have that documentation on there as well, those particular students that are in trouble.
So are you saying making more home visits and what else? I mean,
well, they've been making those social workers have been making those home visits all along, and I don't know if you have privy to those documents for each single one of those students. We've got documentation of what has been done with those students, and if that needs to be shared with you, I'd be happy to go over that, share that with you.
I saw a hand somewhere.
Yeah, I don't think we're in the forum to be able to discuss individual children, but
We are not.
individual
No, we
children
can't.
come with individual situations.
Yeah.
We do have Kennedy homes, so we have a lot of placements that are in and sometimes out and never graduate. They do never hours, but for a month. Our counseling department meets with students with attendance issues, and at the 3-week mark for progress reports, we pull data on who's failing, who has attendance issues, and we meet one-on-one with them. We also pull them at the 9 weeks halfway through the semester, and we meet with them again. We have senior meetings at the beginning, and we have an 11-plus homeroom, and those are seniors that should be graduating, they're not on track, but should be. We create what's called 11-plus, and we go in those classrooms. We do classroom guidance for all grade levels every semester. When this list is produced, I know every one of these kids. I don't need to look it up. I can tell you exactly what happened. So I put my hands on every one of these kids, and I've done the best I could with them.
So I guess going back to what Mr. Anderson was talking about earlier, and just kind of speaking from experience, and I've worked with some of you all when I work, what is being done, because we're going back to middle school, the transition, middle school to high school, when they come over in the 9th grade. All right. They didn't just start messing up when they got to be a senior. So what is being done at that level, at the 9th grade, when you see that they're missing too many days, you see that they're...
I mean, I think that you're trying to get to like freshman academy or link crew where you have 9th grade and you target the at-risk children from the get-go. We do have some classes that we try to target them academically, but we do have 9th grade retention, or our 9th graders that are retained that my counseling group runs small groups with. And there's 2 on here that didn't make it out of the 8 that I had in that group, for this particular group. But we try everything. If you have a suggestion, we'll be happy to entertain it.
I think Ms.
Now, I've heard.
Anderson mentioned something very good. What we do at Kinston High for our incoming from Rochelle is I personally, with our counselors, I go through every report card from those incoming 8th graders. I look at everyone's attendance and their grades, and we hand schedule a lot of them. And we make sure for Math 1, some of those, that we try to get them into a very successful first semester and make sure we acclimate them to the environment and also so that they understand the high school requirements of attendance and also their, the grading and the credits, earning credits, because a lot of them think just one grade to the next. They don't understand about 6 credits from 9th to 10th for English 1 being a requirement each year and passing that. So we try with the counselors to do that as they're coming in from the 8th grade. I worked with the guidance staff at Rochelle last year when we started February, March with the middle schools, going to those 8th graders and getting them used to us and our counselors and meeting with them, and then scheduling and parent nights and trying to get their schedule done before the school year ever ends. And we use their test data to help us also place them so that they are successful from the very beginning. Something else Kinston High does, as Mr. Smith knows with his work in credit recovery, we have that program as all the high schools do, but at Kinston High, we run a special Monday, Tuesday, Thursday from 2:50 to 5:50 classes, where they're there in the evenings doing credit recovery. We run a bus at 5:50 every evening so that we can get those credits recovered. We also, for our seniors, those last ones that we don't want to lose, we have a 5th period, 2nd semester of their senior year for that one last credit that they may need. It's a real life course. That is something unique Kinston High does so that we try to keep our numbers down. So we try to personally know each one, and as we know each one, and it's not a very I've had one in my office demanding to leave and want to sign out, and I meet with the parent and I said, we need to schedule a meeting a week from now and let's talk about it. When that parent comes back and emotions are over and they're able to really calmly talk about it and they can listen to all the pros and cons about dropping out of school and what their options are, and I've had students end up staying because of that. Because in the heat of the moment, they're through, they want to leave, but we don't allow them to do that.
But I have a, how many short suspensions does a kid get before, you try to push them in? Does it go to a long term, or is there any amount that says, hey, it's time for us to do something else with this kid? It's like, because I am kind of like Ms. Anderson on this one. 1,250 and then the 522, that's astronomical. How many, because I know a lot of these are double and triple repeaters, but can you tell me what's the procedure on how you do that, how you determine that it's time to put the kid on a long-term suspension or recommend him to the alternative school? How many of these are repeat offenders, or how many are, is there a process that you use that says
Well, it depends on what the offense is. Discipline is cumulative. If they had, say, a 3-day suspension, and then the next one, there's no set rule. It depends on what the offense is. But if for the same offense, the 3-day suspension, the next offense might be a 5-day suspension, and the next, or the first offense, if it's If it's a fight or if it's possession of drugs or alcohol, it might be a 10-day suspension on first offense. So it all depends on what it is.
And our
But I
code of
think what you're really
conduct-
asking is about interventions and support structures. And there is strong disproportionality expressed there, and we would be crazy if we didn't look at that and see a need for change and a need for a lot of hard work in
I
that.
think that needs to be broken down.
Yeah, and I want to just caution the board members because, you know, I struggled with whether to even put this on this month's agenda because it just came out last week.
Thursday morning of the state board meeting.
Last week, Thursday is when the data hit. So in fairness to the administration, the counselors, and they're trying to deal with these issues too. And I just want to recognize that. I think this is going to be an ongoing issue. But I think those are definitely numbers that we want to delve into and take some time to do it. But I just wanted to caution that I don't feel like these folks have really had the time to delve into those as deeply. So I feel like their plans are probably not fully formed as to how they're going to handle these numbers at this point.
I still would like to see a breakdown as to what those offenses were.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm sure we've got that data.
We can do that. We'll do that.
So I'll just say at South Moore, this year we've had, we suspended 117 students, 69 or 117 suspensions with 69 different people. So their organization know that basically the number of suspension and the person is half. So, you know, so we have suspended 69 students at South Moore this year, but there have been 117 total suspensions. I can't speak for how the other schools do it, but we do try not to send anybody to the alternative school. And that's something to do with the fact that, and it may be, it's our way of thinking, we feel like we can handle the problems that a student does and make them better at our school than send somebody to somewhere else. You know, there certainly are times we have 4 or 5 that have been sent to the alternative school this year. That will be a situation for us, but at our school, as long as I'm there, it is the last resort because I just feel like we can take care of a kid who has done something wrong and work with them and see them grow for years than we do by just sitting there and sending someone else to another place and let someone else deal with the problem that took place at our school.
That's all well and good. And it may not be representative of South Lenoir. But there is a problem there.
Mr. Anderson, my first year entering into Kinston High, the previous year, the data that was provided to me, over 2,000 discipline situations at the school. Last year, that number was drastically decreased with the interventions and things we put into place, and this year it is even lower. So we have seen an improvement drastically. Now, last year, I did take a year, as the question was asked, and it does depend on the offense and the severity of the offense, but I sent quite a few to the alternative school due to necessity. And so those numbers of short-term suspension are down because those 47 children are at the alternative school for alternative placement to get that individualized attention and corrective behavior. And of those that do have returned, we've been able to maintain and hold on to them because now they know what's expected of them and that there is a serious consequence at our school in our particular situation. Every school climate's different and what's needed, but we have seen a drastic decrease in our discipline.
I think you know as well as I do that when you see something like that, there is definitely a communication problem. Now, what I'm interested in is whether or not those suspensions are for offenses like insubordination, fighting, disrespect, because I have my suspicion that a lot of them are.
Something we put in place this year for our students with the PBIS program, any student who has 1 to 3, we usually do 3 discipline referrals from previous year. We have established a PBIS mentor, positive behavior, and intervention for that student. And the staff have all signed up. They have 1 to 2 and that are your black males and black females, and they have a one-on-one person that's checking on them, if not daily, bi-weekly, their grades, meeting with them, meeting with their parents, and truly working with them to deter discipline. So that's something we've done as part of our PBIS. And those are interventions that are put in place. The teachers work with that mentor instead of a discipline referral to show that somebody is fighting for me, caring for me, and has got my back to help me get through those tough times. Instead of them acting out or being insubordinate or having those issues, that they have somebody they can go to cool off with or talk with and get help from. So we have implemented that.
Sorry, I want to go back to you because I'm all about accountability. When you said that the information just came out, the information was reported last year. So they knew the information. So my thing was, what will we put in place for this year to offset those numbers? Because those numbers were actually reported last year.
Well, what did we get on Thursday?
But we got it, the public got it.
Well, it was, you got it in the form you got it, but the schools actually did, it was gathered and actually submitted to the PI mid-fall. So the schools did have their dropout numbers, but they weren't confirmed or official until they were presented to the state board last Thursday. And this consolidated discipline report, we've never seen that. We have our own individual school numbers and the district data.
And I think in fairness, this is an issue we're going to have to revisit, and I think there's some interest in delving into these numbers a little further.
In fact, we'll get what Mr. Anderson asked for. We'll get that for you.
But I'm not sure it's going to be productive to go any further this evening. Is everybody comfortable moving on to the next item?
Yep.
All right, we will go to Ms. Davis and the financial report.
Good evening. The financial report reflects the year-to-date activity by providing revenue and expenditure information as to all the sources of funds received and expended by fund and purpose as of February 29, 2016. May I answer any questions? If you'll notice, the fund balance did increase. That was due to making those adjustments for the lease payments.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Davis on the financial report tonight? If not, we'll move to the action portion. The first item is Ms. Davis with budget amendment number 2 for this year.
This budget amendment increases the state public school funds due to additional funding received in PRCO 14 for CTE, PRCO 15 for technology, PRCO 16 for summer reading camps, PRCO 32 for EC funds, PRCO 56 for transportation, and PRCO 63 for EC special program funds. It also reduces funds due to the ADM adjustments. Capital outlay funds are increased due to an insurance claim settlement and sale of surplus items. May I answer any questions?
What was the ADM adjustments? Is that the number of our students is down?
The better of the first or second ADM we
Okay.
had.
Extra calendar.
Questions?
Yeah, any questions on the budget amendment?
Out of all that money people putting in the lottery, that's all we got.
We're going to start that discussion.
Yeah, no,
You ready?
Do we have a motion to approve the budget amendment?
Motion to approve budget amendment number 2 as presented.
Motion by Mr. Hill. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Nobles. Any further discussion on the budget amendment? Then all in favor, raise your right hand. Budget amendment is approved. Thank you, Ms. Davis.
Thank you.
Next item is the instructional calendar for 2016-2017. Ms. Lynch?
I believe Ms. Herring is presenting that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I saw your name on it. And Francis, I'm sorry.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Last month, you all were given the proposal for the 16-17 calendar. You have 30 days to review it. So if you have any questions regarding the calendar, if not, we would like to request a motion to approve the calendar as presented.
Move to approve.
Motion made by Mr. Anderson. Do we have a second? Second. Second by Mr. Davis. Any further discussion on next year's instructional calendar? And all in favor, raise your right hand. Calendar is approved.
Thank you.
Next item is the Bill Fay Tennis Complex Reconstruction Project. Mr. Williams.
Okay, we have with us tonight Scott Austin and Galen Treble from the Lenore County Parks and Recreation Department. We were approached by Parks and Rec a few months ago, and they started working on a grant proposal for redoing the tennis complex at Bill Fay Park, a $198,000 project, and seeking grants from, or blending funds from the City of Kinston, the U.S. Tennis Association, USTANC, and other grants and donations listed in the grant proposal in the packet that you received. And we were approached about that, and we met with the leadership team with Bill Ellis and Mr. Treble and Mr. Austin over at the Women's Center a few months ago and talked about this. And at that time, they were seeking between $30,000 and $50,000 in blended funding, matching funds that we would need to pledge as a school system if they apply for this grant. Well, why are we involved in this? It's because our Lenore County Public Schools does not have and has not had any tennis facilities at our school sites. We have active tennis programs, but our home tennis facilities are provided by Parks and Recreation, and we pay no upkeep costs, we pay no maintenance costs, we pay nothing really, and they're gracious enough to let us use that. And our athletics in the area of tennis takes precedent over anything else that they have going on, and they basically schedule us first, and those are our home facilities. Now, as you had some pictures and the pictures don't really do justice to how bad things are. Well, maybe one of them does, the one with the tennis racket sticking in the court. Maybe that one does through the cracks. But about what kind of condition the courts are in over there. But they're trying to move forward and be proactive. They did that at Fairfield down here and redid those, and that's a wonderful facility. I don't know if you describe it as state of the art, but it looks that way to me. It's really, really good for our community and our kids, and the tennis programs in Lenore County are growing. But again, the cost to put tennis facilities on each of our campuses would be quite prohibitive at this time, and all they've asked for is for us to pledge something. And they've come back now, and they've said that they really need, I think they approached actually Mr. Sargent and then me through him, and said that they need $50,000 in a pledge of matching funds. And we felt that in talking with Chairman Sargent, we felt that it was something we needed to bring before the board and to have you consider it here tonight. So they're here to answer any questions, and we're bringing it to you for your consideration.
And I appreciate y'all hanging through all this long meeting
Thank you. We learned
a lot
tonight. And I serve as the ex officio member of the Parks and Recreation Commission on behalf of the board. So I have sat through a lot of meetings about the upkeep, and we've had a wonderful arrangement with Parks and Recreation. They have been very kind to us. We use this facility as the home facility for both North Lenore and Kinston High School. I've been out there personally. It's not going to be in playable condition probably in another year, and it's beginning to be a hazard for the students because you've got places where it's sunken in, you've got holes on the court, you've got large cracks on the court, and they, like I said, they've been so kind to us, letting us use this facility really at no cost. They maintain everything about it. They provide the lights, they provide the electricity. We felt like that in speaking with Mr. Williams and actually in speaking with Dr. Mazingo about this issue last year when it came up, we really felt like we had an obligation to contribute to this project.
How many games a year do we play there?
We play the girls play Kinston High and North Lenore play in the fall season. Play a total of they have 14 matches, so 7 home matches for each school in the fall. And then in the spring, about the same, 7 for boys on each school. So that would be a total of 14 matches, home matches in the spring for the total for both schools.
And they're out there practicing pretty much every day.
And yeah, the
during
high schools
season.
practice Monday through Thursday, after school 3:30 to 5. And yeah, they're really used, like I said, from September to November 1st in the fall season. And then in the spring, boys use it from March to May 1st, in addition to our own, whatever recreation clinics we use. And you know, we're hopefully South Lenoir can sooner or later get a high school team together. There's been some inklings on it, and you know, that would place another school using Bill Fay Park as, so it would go from 2 high schools to 3 if South Lenoir ever decides to use the facility and gets a team together.
My only question, and I have no problem with it, but where does this fall within our budget?
Oh, it can only come from local money.
Are we being asked to pledge?
We're being asked to pledge this amount for their grant proposal, and to provide matching funds to equal out to the $198,000, but that would be our total commitment.
Our total commitment,
Would be the $50,000. And I will say, in researching this, I can tell you that both Dr. Mazingo and I looked around at different districts, and in most counties, Parks and Recreation does assess a fee to the school system if the school system doesn't have facilities, and assesses that charge for the use and for utilities and things like that.
Give you some information on the grant. We've applied for this. We're in the final stages of this USTA reconstruction grant. The goal is to receive $20,000, which is from the national office. And once you receive this $20,000, if you qualify for it, then it would go to the USTA North Carolina to get any additional funds, which we're hoping for $10,000. So you have to receive the $20,000 from the USTA national, then you're on the list for the next amount of funds through USTA in North Carolina. And those will go toward the project for this year.
And this is a process you all use to redo Fairfield.
Redo Fairfield, and Galen can talk about that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, we've had these courts almost 38 years. I played on these courts when I was in high school in Jacksonville, so it's somewhat dear to me, and I started the program many years ago. But we have been resurfacing the courts every 7 to 10 years, or you just keep going over it just through usage issues. And what has happened here just in the last 2 years is we had these hard freezes and the small cracks with the rain. It accelerated faster than anything I've seen. With each freeze we have, I mean, even in the last 6 months, we might have gained another 1.5 inches. This would be the last year that we would be able to, we would have to condemn these courts at this time. And if you say, well, why can't we use Fairfield? Fairfield only has 4 tennis courts, and we have to, in high school tennis, you have to be able to play 6 matches at one time. So this is why we're talking about demolishing the whole thing, starting over from right out there at the golf course, starting from dirt and moving up. We probably won't be sitting here again for another 40 years.
That was my question.
You know,
I
this
just
is
need
being
to ask
taped,
Lisa
right?
one question. Can we afford it, Lisa? I saw we got extra capital outlay money, and so
Go to capital outlay.
can we
It would come out of the fund balance.
fund balance?
Out of the fund balance.
Yeah, and that increased too. So I've been part of the.
I took
part of the recreation.
Garland's position when he stepped
and I
off
know
the
that-
Parks and Rec Board.
That group, they spend money wisely, and so I truly support this. So if look like our fund balance can afford it.
At the moment.
At the moment, right.
Just out of curiosity, how did you come up with the $50,000 for Lenoir County Schools?
That was a fourth of the cost. And the city is, the project total is 198, close to 200,000. That's a fourth of the cost. And actually, the schools probably use maybe at least half the usage of it, so it's actually lower than what the usage is if you consider that. So that's just, we did a fourth of the cost, which was lower than the usage of it, actually. And what we're trying to do is you know, we're not trying to, you know, we just want to keep the courts playable. We want these courts to be able to be out there for the use of the community and especially the school system because, you know, they let it go, there's 4 usable courts. So without that, we're going to be in this dire situation. It's not like we're going to rebuild them to the Taj Mahal or U.S. Open. You know, we're just going to keep them.
Just going to be 6 basic courts, and another thing is a lot of the kids that are using the courts that do go to the schools, they're not actually tennis players at the time. They might be football players, baseball players, and this is just another avenue to keep kids into sports, staying physically fit, having something to do, and getting them through to the next season. So it reaches out to more than just the few tennis players that are at the schools. And you know, I've been in recreation almost 32 years now, and I can say that when you keep kids involved in athletics and in recreation, Bill and myself and many others, it's very dear to us to keep these kids, you know, starting from our day camps from the age of 6 years old, you know, all the way up through high school. So we take a very serious part in these kids, trying to get them, to give them a lot of life lessons. Scott came to me when he was 10 years old and said, I want to do what you do, Mr. Hale. I said, you go to school, and you come on back and we'll get you doing it. So he went off to Carolina and he came back and he took over and just done a wonderful job.
And well, the one thing too is, you know, in our recreation program, that the schools, you know, half our 18 and under summer team was made up of Kinston High, the other half was North North. We had probably 18 kids on that team. They won the state championship in the junior team tennis this past year, and like I said, they were represented by those 2 schools, which we're proud of that this year. It's first time.
You're going to mention the state championship.
Yeah, we got to mention that state championship. But yeah, like I said, we're hoping to expand down the road to get South and North to hopefully get a team sooner or later. And that's.
What is your timeline for trying to get your fund? I mean,
well, it's going into the budget for July. It's July, so we would like to get rolling on this very soon. But what we are going to do right now, you said, well, we got tennis season coming up. We are actually have ordered materials to fill in these courts, something like what you would see on your roads, but it's matching color, and just to get the tripping type hazards out. Where we can't help is when the balls hit the courts, where there's raises in the courts. Those aren't really issues of safety, but more of just having a level court.
When will you hear back from the grant proposal?
We should hear back within 30 days once these final issues are taken care of. We will know in 30 days, so we should get a reply back, and then we'll have I think a year and a half to use the grant once it's approved and ready for.
I will say that when I first looked at this, not having all the information, I was a little apprehensive, but because I didn't have all the information, knowing what it was used for, how much we used it, and all that. But after listening to that, I do see that, you know, I mean, there's a need for it. I don't have any objection to it. My question goes back to Ms. Davis. That comes out of local funds, you said, right? Which area of local funds?
Fund balance.
Fund balance.
Fund balance.
This would be a one-time expense, non-recurring out of the fund balance.
I know it comes out of fund balance. Okay.
Mr. Chair, the other recommendation that I would have is that if the board approves this expenditure, we should have an MOU with the county on the use of these facilities. I think we've had a long-standing arrangement, which is fabulous, but it's never been memorialized in any sort of agreement, which would be standard, particularly if we're going to be investing that kind of money. The other thing, I'm just looking for a little bit of clarification, because the February 11th letter in here has the numbers 118 from the county, 50,000 from the district. I think the 20,000 from UST National is the grant, and then the 10,000.
10,000 will be from USTA local.
North Carolina. There's this extra, and if you add all those up, that gets to the project budget of 198,018, which makes sense. But there's this other thing that says 11,808.
But that's a typo. That was my fault. Yeah.
Okay, so that's not.
Yeah, that was a typo on the initial one. It was supposed to be another 0.
Okay, great.
That was my fault.
Carolina grad. No.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So Carolyn, you're just saying that if we do this, just do a memorandum of understanding between the board and
To the
Parks
extent
and
that
Rec.
there's an agreement with the, I mean, even irrespective of this money.
They will be
you
allowed to
should have an
continue to use the
agreement.
facility.
Absolutely, you want to make sure that
Yeah.
if you're
And I
going to
don't
be
think
investing
the
this
county's
money,
gonna
you
have
want
any problem
a
with that.
long-standing
We won't have any
agreement in writing about
That's
it.
That'll be fine.
That's an indefinite MOU.
Yeah.
We can sort through the details of that, but
When you did, just out of curiosity, when you did Fairfield, did the school board done any money?
No, we haven't asked for any monies in all these years, and we've probably spent just at Belfay in the last 30 years probably $60,000-$70,000 to keep resurfacing those.
Resurfacing it every few years.
We had time to prepare for Fairfield, and we had it put into the budget. And this, like I said, this really caught up in just that last year, almost aged it 10 years worth, but actually with the damage from the winter and the rain at the same time, it just made it irreplaceable. And we've had two different companies come down and say, yeah, you don't need to put a Band-Aid on this because your structures, it's done.
So that looked similar to Fairfield?
Exact same thing.
Lighting as well, the same lighting?
Yeah, they would actually keep the same lighting at this there.
Okay.
And,
That's a good question. Yeah, that'll be the only, that and the water fountain will be the only original.
New fence, and they'll raise it a grade of 3 inches, and the drainage would be re-drained so that the water would go away from the courts. And
I think for our use, he's saying 40 years, even if you were to get 30 out of it.
Yeah.
For our use, that's, what, $1,500 a year for us to use it 8 months, 9 months out of the year. I think that's
Well, the technology
money
will
well
probably
spent.
allow us to even go further than that too. Back then, it was much more of a crude way of making tennis courts, so. Good chance.
Do we have a motion
Yeah.
to approve?
Motion to approve a request under the Kinston, Lenore County Parks and Recreation to place $50,000 in matching fund if the Parks and Rec grant is funded to resurface the tennis court at Belfay Park.
Second.
With that condition?
All right, motion made by Mr. Hill, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, I'm gonna say Mr. Noble's got first on the second.
Okay.
Any further discussion? And all in favor of approving the motion, raise your right hand. It is approved.
We thank you very much.
Thank y'all for sticking with us here.
we'll keep you updated.
Great. Next item is the E-rate program contracts for, what is this, our wireless service?
Good evening. Tonight we're asking for approval of the E-rate contracts for the continued use and the expansion of our wide area network and our PRI services. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, tell us exactly what the wide area network is.
Sure. In layman's terms, we're talking about the pipe that our internet goes through. So we're essentially looking at through our ILCPS, through our continued use, through the state offering more internet-related services. We're looking at the use and the bandwidth that we have, the total amount of traffic that's going through it, and we're looking at doubling that amount, not just for our current use, but looking for expansion for the years to come. PRI deals specifically with telecommunications. Sorry about it.
So I guess we're satisfied with CenturyLink, that's who it's through, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, our firm has not reviewed either one of these agreements. We normally do, we don't do full overrides, we keep it somewhat simple, but there are sometimes terms in there that aren't particularly favorable to school districts, and we do look for those targeted things. I'd suggest if it's not time sensitive, that it be pulled as an action item right now.
I think it might be.
Is it time sensitive?
I do
as to
not
when we have to
know.
approve
Typically, Mr. Decker handles this, but he is out of town today, so I'm not sure if there is a time sensitive.
It is time
aspect
sensitive,
to
but I
this.
think we can come back at the April meeting.
Great. Well, we can review it quickly and get it back to you just quick.
So we can put that on the April meeting? We need a motion,
So
I
the
guess,
motion
to
to
take it
table.
off the agenda and I guess table it to the
A motion to table till the April meeting.
April meeting. Do we have that motion?
Move to table the E-rate program contracts to the April meeting.
Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Nobles. All in favor of tabling that issue to the April meeting, subject to the attorney being able to review the contracts? Raise your right hand. All right, put that on.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is the out-of-state school trips.
We do have 4 out-of-state trips. South Lenore is requesting to have their softball team travel to Myrtle Beach for a tournament. Pink Hill is requesting a trip to Myrtle Beach. You have previously approved this, but it got canceled due to inclement weather, so they've rescheduled it for March the 8th. The Early College is requesting permission to travel to Orlando, Florida for a senior trip. And South Lenore FFA students are asking to travel to Oklahoma for a land judging competition.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve the out-of-state school trips?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Davis. Do we have a second?
Second.
Is that Mr. Hill? Sorry.
Sorry about that.
Any further discussion on the out-of-state school trips? And all in favor, raise your right hand. The trips are approved. We'll entertain a motion to go into closed session.
I move that Lenore County Board of Education go to closed session under North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11 to prevent disclosure of confidential personnel files, to consult with the board's attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege and to consider matters relating to initial employment of an individual employee.
Motion by Mr. Hill. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Smith. All in favor going to closed session, raise your right hand.
We have to.
We are now in closed session. All right, we are returned to open session. Before we get to the personnel report, I just want to announce that the board has entered and approved a confidential separation agreement and general release between the board and Dr. Stephen Hill. That was approved in closed session. Next item is we will entertain a motion to approve the personnel report with the addendum.
Move to approve the personnel report with the addendum.
Motion by Mr. Smith. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Hill. All in favor of approving the personnel report with the addendum, raise your right hand. It is approved. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Anderson. All in favor of adjournment, raise your right hand. We are now adjourned. Thank you.